Well, top of the morning to you lads. I know y'all are quarantine day 4,781, or so it feels. For those of you in Tarrant County, this is quarantine day one. It's literally the first day. So I woke up this morning and my eyes are all messed up. I think it's from my allergies. I don't know. Already went to the eye doctor once. I refuse to go again. Not for a while. As a member of the male race, I don't find doctors, especially during these trying times, to be a place that I like to visit. So I hope you'll understand. So I made some notes today so that this live is less rambly and less funny than yesterday's. I hope that you found it funny yesterday. I certainly had a good time. I see we have Jenna again. Hi. I see we have William again. Yeah, y'all, for those of you that don't know, Jenna is an amazing photographer. She photographs births, and right now she has a From the Porch special going on where she'll take a picture of you on your front porch from 6 feet away, keeping good social distancing. William, he is an agent in Austin, but he also runs like a little co-op farm looking thing. So I think that's super cool. And Kyle Draper, the #1 real estate coach of all time, preaching the real knowledge, coming at you hot. Good to hear from you, bud. Love you, man. Haven't seen you in a while. So anyway, back to my notes before I get ADD'd off. Pre-hire, questions to ask your tradesmen or tradeswomen. Quick funny story about that. My mother-in-law at her house one time hired an exterminator, showed up. It was a termite lady. Didn't know that the ladies participated in the pest application, but hey, I'm not chauvinist. You want to do your pest apps? Go ahead. I personally am not a huge fan of the chemicals, but whatever works. So, my tips to ask a tradesman before you hire them. #1, who are you hiring? This sounds elementary, but I assure you it is not. Are you hiring that individual, or are you hiring a subcontractor? So, they're in kind of the hierarchy of trades, and this isn't all-encompassing, so burn me down. So there's more, there's less. There's general contractors, then there's tradesmen, and then there's subcontractors. So tradesmen can also be a subcontractor of a general contractor, but within your different trade stacks, sometimes you'll have subcontractors. So for example, I'm sitting in front of my parents' house waiting for HVAC guys to show up to install a very cool, it's called a VRF, Variable Refrigerant Flow System. What's up, Jerry? Andrew? Others? Hi. So I'm waiting for them to show up to install this VRF. And talking to Dad, it sounds like that we've got subs. So there's a primary who secured the job, but it seems like we're dealing with subcontractors, and the behavior that they're exhibiting seems like they're probably subs. Not that all subcontractors are bad. Sometimes having a subcontractor can be a very good thing. But when you start thinking about like liens on property and all of the things that come into contracting someone to come work on your house, make sure that you know who you're hiring. Are you hiring the actual tradesman, or are you hiring a subcontractor? Because the man that came to your door and the person that shows up to do the job may be someone totally different, and likely will be. But do they work for the same company and adhere to the same set of standards, or is one totally separate from the other with the exception of the subcontractor performs work for the tradesman when he either can't or doesn't want to travel to do the job in a specific place? The second question, and I like to keep the money high in the list. How will payment be handled? I have heard everything from, yeah, Jerry, you know. I have heard everything from, you should pay your contractors 100% up front. I get it. I mean, I understand, like, we all want to get paid up front. I mean, Real estate, being a real estate agent is by and large a trade. It's something that you learn to do. You have tools that you utilize. You contract with clients. But getting paid totally up front is rare. And typically you are going to take a large discount. So when you're negotiating payment with a tradesman, if they want to be paid everything up front, number one, like 100% is not going to happen. If they want to be paid materials up front, let's have that conversation. What does that look like? How much are these materials actually going to be? And if somebody gives me a big round number, like $1,500, I'm pretty hesitant of that. Boards don't usually cost $1 or $10. It's normally not an even number. When I'm buying from a store, I have things like tax. So if I'm getting a big round number, I'm going to ask myself the question, well, where are these materials being sourced from? Are they coming from another job? Are they coming from a previous job? And I'm not necessarily opposed to things like these are leftover materials from a previous job. I'm okay with that. But I want to know where they're coming from. Am I getting new or like new materials, or am I getting used materials? Are you going to be using stolen materials? Because that I'm not okay with. So what do the materials look like? And then what does the labor look like? And some people aren't going to be able to give you that breakdown, or are going to be unwilling to give you that breakdown. If they're unable or unwilling to give me the breakdown, then they have a level of sophistication, in my opinion, that they can wait for the money until the job's complete. Once it's done, then you pay. You can cover the materials. That's a cost of doing business. Now, I do obviously understand that there are factors in place, and that those tradesmen are oftentimes putting real money and real dollars into a property. That, you say you can file a mechanics lien. Well, mechanics liens are only good for like a year, and then you got to renew them. And there's lots of issues around that, and the fact that I can't pay direct energy with my mechanics lien. But I filed a mechanics lien, great, get your money or don't, but we don't care. So make sure that you have the payment figured out, how that's going to be handled and how that's going to shake out. I recommend a 10 to 15 to 20 to 25% holdback until everything is done. Know that as soon as, and I'm not saying this is 100%, some of y'all out there watching are friends of mine, you're in the trades. But most trades, once you pay them, they're done. They ain't going to come back. So anything they said they were going to do that was a part of the scope of work, which we'll get to next, make sure that they've done it, because once you pay them that last money, they have no incentive to come back. The reality is everybody's money motivated to a degree. So make sure that everything's done before you pay them that final payment. Scope of work. So this is, in my opinion, probably the most missed aspect of hiring a tradesman. What exactly is he going to do, or she going to do for you? And what does that look like? It sounds simple on something like, well, they're just going to come cut the lawn. Okay. So are they literally just going to come cut it, or are they going to run the string trimmer around too? Are they going to blow the grass off? What does the scope of work look like? Now, I bring up scope of work because this is important from a payment perspective. If you thought it was going to be one thing and the contractor thought it was going to be another, y'all are never going to reach an agreement on what the price is going to be. Anybody can come and run a lawnmower over a lawn, but if you're looking for a lawn service that's actually maintaining and improving your lawn as they cut it, that's a different conversation. So understanding the scope of work and exactly what they're going to do, and how, what materials are going to be used, what's not going to be used, what's going to be replaced, what's not going to be replaced. And it's not, there's people that will say, well, there's only one right way to do it. That's not always necessarily true. Sometimes there is, but there's usually a multitude of ways to do anything. And that's okay as long as you have a scope of work. So make sure that you have a scope of work so that you and the tradesman are on the same page. Next is standard operating procedures. So I like to ask all trades, what time are you normally going to get to the job? And I'm looking for consistency in timing. Good trades are going to have consistency. They're going to do things kind of the same way. Now, if they're a handyman or a jack of all trades, that's a different conversation. But I want to know that going in. I want to know if this guy is good at everything but great at very few things. And that's okay. But I need to know that going in so that, if I'm hiring for something highly specific, maybe I'll find somebody else. And so what time do they show up every day? What time do they typically leave? And then how do they handle delays? How's that going to be handled? What happens if they're going to redo the roof and it rains? Do they have ways to work around that? Can they work through that? Or is that just going to be a delay? And then I need to look at the time of year and account for that. If I'm having my kid's birthday party, 2 weeks from now, and I've contracted to do a roof the day before, what happens if it rains that day? Do I then have tar paper on my house? Are they going to take the roof off and replace it in the same day? Typically, and I'm just looking for typical standard operating procedures. And if you're working with bigger companies, those will often be dictated in writing. Smaller companies, it's usually just going to be verbal, and I'm okay with either. I don't make a huge qualm about where's your SOP book here? Hold on now, a lot of it in the trades is verbal knowledge that they've picked up that's been passed down on the job training. So a lot of times they're not going to have a big book of here's what our SOPs are. But generally, what time are you going to show up? What time are you going to leave? And what's that kind of look like? Contract. The term contractor, it amazes me. They put it in the name so that we didn't forget. And sometimes we still forget. I'm guilty of it. It's easy to have a guy show up and go, hey, go ahead and get started. Well, hold on now. What's our contract? Have we at least loosely put, sorry guys, my eyes are driving me crazy. Have we at least loosely put our agreement on some type of piece of paper that we have both agreed to and signed? What's that look like? And by the way, to file a mechanics lien, you need a contract of some kind. So trades will often, and so here's what I find when you contract somebody or try to take a tradesman and put them under contract. You will find out if everything that you just talked about, because I've had a lot of tradesmen tell me I'm a man of my word. If I say I'm going to finish it, I'm going to finish it. And a lot of times that's true. A lot of times it's not. So when you go to start contracting, sometimes you'll start to get a little pivot. Oh, hold on now. Okay. That's the point of a contract, is so that we all remember and what we agreed to and what that looked like and, what the timelines were. So when you show up at noon 3 days in a row and I go, hey man, per our contract, your standard operating procedure arrival time is between 7 and 9. You showed up at noon the last 3 days in a row. What's going on? I don't know that you get to be on my job anymore. You haven't honored our contract. So, and I'm not a big wave my contract around. Let's have a conversation with them. But it's more of a, let's remember what we've agreed to. And if there's something going on that's beyond his control, or there's some issue that's in place, let's figure that out. But if he doesn't have time or he's overwhelmed, I want to get ahead of problems before they become bigger problems, because a lot of times they'll aggregate. If there's something going on that he's, I watched a trade one day show up at 3 o'clock. And I went, dude, you only got 3 hours of sun left. How, you're going to come disrupt the homeowner on several separate occasions because you can't manage your schedule in such a way to be here for a full work day? And I get it. If there's stuff he needs to finish up, there's certainly extenuating circumstances that exist in every situation. But, this was a job where there was plenty of work left to be done, and he was just choosing to do it very piecemeal. And it's no, that's not what we contracted to. And a good general contractor will screen these trades and find things out like that. Not that it's 100% perfect, but there's questions to ask people to find out if they're going to be good tradesmen or leave something left to be desired. That's an excellent point, Andrea. Good trades are not afraid of a contract. That's for sure. So I want to know, too, their limits of liability and what their insurance looks like. Now, before y'all twist off and just start getting on an insurance tangent, recognize that there are certain trades that it is cost prohibitive for them to carry insurance for a residential application. And I get that. I totally understand. I have a guy that I've hired to do work on different properties. The running joke that we have is if you want me to be bonded and insured, you are welcome to pay for it and make me the beneficiary. And you can at times get job specific insurance, but typically it's going to be what's called a general liability policy, so it's going to be broad scope. If you are super worried about the insurance aspect of it, you should probably hire a GC, a general contractor that will carry that insurance, which his subs will then roll up under. So it is a liability deference strategy. Good general contractors are going to charge 10 to 15%, sometimes more, sometimes less. It just depends on the project and what's going on. But if insurance is very important to you, and from an asset protection perspective, you want to have that, make sure you have that conversation with that guy to see if he has insurance and what that looks like. I'll leave you with 2 parting tips. Number 1, ask. Ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask. If language is a barrier, use Google Translate. It's an excellent tool. There are trades that I talk to through text message, kind of not exclusively, but for the most part through text message for that reason. I want to make sure that we have a very clear understanding. Learn to recognize what I call the false yes. If I ask somebody a question and they go, hold on, I'm going to ask another question, a digging question, maybe a more complicated question, so as to produce either another or to a certain degree, I want him to repeat it back to me. Like, that's what I always try to get someone to do, whether there's a language barrier or not. Explain to me what I just asked you to do. What does that look like? If I say rebuild a mailbox, what do I mean by that? Like, and I'm kind of looking for, I'm going to sort of gauge that trade and see if he knows that he's supposed to match that grout. But I want to make sure that I've got the details kind of lined out of what that looks like, because what I don't want is a trade guessing. So ask. And another little pro tip, a lot of times it's why I provide the materials. Then they're just providing the labor. I have control of the materials and the cost, and I have control of the labor cost. And I know about how much it costs and what it looks like. And then I can better manage the project. And it's beneficial to the trade too. A lot of those guys don't want to go buy materials. It takes time. It's time consuming. They don't want to do it. They'd rather you just have it there. And the last thing that I'll leave you with is, if possible, look at an active job that they're working on. Go look at that job. What's it look like? Like, what's the workspace look like? How's everything set up? Anytime that I can see a trade's toolbox, as it were, whether that be at their shop or on their truck or their what does their workspace look like? Is it clean and organized where they can find the things that they're looking for and they can source the tools, or are they going to spend all day digging, looking for stuff? I heard an electrician one time that his electrician's van was a nightmare. Like, this dude couldn't find anything. Lo and behold, I mean, he made like, I think 19 trips to Lowe's on like a basic rewire. Now, granted, it was a panel and breakers and wires, so like there's some aspects to it. Like, it wasn't just coming up and swapping an outlet. Like, I mean, it was a pretty big project, but he did not have the level of organization, in my opinion, to be a full-blown electrician. It took him 3 times as long as it should have. And then he was crying about making more money because it took forever. And I'm like, wait a second. This wasn't a reflection of our work site. Our work site was fine. Like, you didn't have an organized list of everything that you needed to start. Forgetting 1 or 2 things is okay. Forgetting 10 is a problem. So look at their workspace, make sure that it's organized, and see what it looks like. Is it clean and well kept? So that's my tips for the day as I sit here waiting on some HVAC contractors to show up to finish a project. So I hope y'all are staying safe during the great pandemic lockdown of 2020. We might need to unplug 2020 and try this again. I am loving all the memes. That's fantastic. If you're interested in what's going on in the real estate market, feel free to shoot me a message. Part of the reason that I did this video today with the trades is I haven't heard that we're there yet, but I would guess that sooner than later, some of these trades are going to start hurting and are going to be looking for some projects to do. And it's a good opportunity. There will be a narrow window when you can get someone that's highly skilled and just happens to not be busy. One of the best painters I ever saw, we got to paint one project and then he disappeared. That dude was so busy, like he was busy forever. But I mean, we got to utilize him because we caught him at a time that it was a super slow time of year and a super slow time in the market. So keep in mind that you can get super high quality work for a fair price, as opposed to low quality work at a high discounted price in the environment that we're coming into. So I always look for the best quality of work that I can afford at a fair price. I'm not a huge fan of starving trades. I know there's a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there are some people in the marketplace that they want to, every price is too high. Whatever he's quoting, do it less, do it less, do it less. Unless you're a new builder and you're giving this guy weeks of consistent work, I don't know that there's a place for that. There's a lot of risk that comes into having that truck show up on that job site every day loaded with tools and people and materials to come do a job. So keep that in mind when you're factoring it out. I mean, on top of the fact that, a lot of times this dude's out here doing a job that someone either physically can't or doesn't want to do. So always keep that in mind with your trade. So if you found this valuable, give it a like. Even if you're watching it later, give me a wave and shoot a date when you were watching it, just so I know when it was. And I hope y'all are having a great day. Talk to you soon.